Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. Today we're going to be talking about a Fair Workweek, which is happening in Los Angeles. This article is by Littler, which is a great employment law firm. You can check out the link down below. But Los Angeles is the latest city to adopt Fair Workweek standards. And I think this is pretty interesting. A lot of people aren't aware of this. But Los Angeles joined San Francisco and a couple other California cities, as well as New York City and Philadelphia and a few others, which require retail establishments to notify their employees of future hours. And I think that's a really interesting concept. So, again, the Los Angeles ordinance will only apply to retail businesses that have at least 300 employees worldwide, including franchises. And these employees at least perform 2 hours of work in a work week in the city of Los Angeles. This goes into effect April 1st. And I think it's really interesting here, right? So I've said this before, but why retail? I mean, like, is it because they won't put up much of a fight? Is it because some special interest wants to focus on retail businesses? What drives retail? Why not? Why aren't fast food people subject to this right? Why aren't factory workers subject to this right? And I think that this is the core of my problem with a lot of California legislations is it has to be driven by special interests. Who who in their right mind would think that this right, which is important enough to be enforced by law, isn't appropriate for everyone? And that's because it's honestly not sustainable for everyone. It's not something that companies can actually do on a large scale, and so they like to punish certain ones so that their whole economy doesn't go into the dustbin of history, I think. But it's so wild to have this requirement. But in this, the employers have to provide a good faith estimate that's written down of the work schedule before hiring and within 10 days of a current employee's request. So they have to give them their schedule, an approximate schedule, before they start, and in 10 days. And it will require the employers to identify the days the employee will not be expected to work, and they'll have to, if they deviate from this, they will actually have to pay the employee extra. The company has to have a documented legitimate business reason that was unknown at the time of the good faith estimate. And I'll be honest, this really gets the employer out of a lot of this, because there are always good faith business reasons that come up which require work outside of an expected work week. In fact, for the most part, that's sort of the standard, right? Beyond that, employees from this law, employees can request changes to their work schedule, which is, fine. They've always had the right to request. Employers will just turn it down. I think this is a really silly addition to this law. And in addition, employers will have to notify the work schedules 14 days before the first day of the schedule, which I think, it doesn't address it here, but I think that would be a problem if you had new hires. So, for example, you would delay their hiring because you couldn't give them a 2-week notice. So I think that's a little bit odd. Beyond that, the ordinance requires employers to post a notice of available or open shifts at least 72 hours before hiring a new employee and 48 hours following the receipt of the offer to work. And then it says employers may only hire new employees to meet increased demand if no current employees are qualified. This is insane. This involvement into who you can hire and when. I think there is value in making sure that employees know when when they're going to work and how much they're going to work. I think that there's value in it. I'm not sure that it necessitates the rule of law, but there is absolutely value in making sure that your employees have a consistent schedule and that it's not consistently changing. Considering all this, why in the world would you only apply it to retail employees? I don't understand, and I'd love someone in the comments to articulate it to me. But the penalty is this: the ordinance requires covered employers to issue premium pay whenever they change an employee's schedule. When the schedule changes result in no lost time or additional work time exceeding 15 minutes, the employer owes the employee 1 additional hour of pay at the employee's regular rate of pay. Changes that result in a loss of work time require the employer to compensate the employee at half of the employee's regular rate of pay for the lost work time. I think that you're going to see an increase of robots. Again, this is another thing that it is at the heart of most labor law, but it's very troublesome. This is only enforced with retail businesses that have 300 employees worldwide. So someone could be treated quite poorly and be in a small mom and pop shop, and I fail to see the difference, right? And the reason that it's not pushed on a small mom and pop shop is because it would absolutely decimate them. But I just don't understand. If it's a right, it's a right. If it's that important, why isn't it important to all people? Same with the retail. Next up is that they have to have rest time between shifts. I think that's fairly common. Employers are required to give employees at least 10 hours of rest between shifts. I think that's a little odd, but it's fairly common. There's penalties and enforcement to it. $128 to each employee whose rights under the ordinance were violated for each day that the violation occurred. So, obviously this will encourage the employers to get better starting April 1st. But I'm really concerned if we consider it, if we think that this is fair and this is equitable and this is what is good for people, then apply it to everyone. Apply it to your restaurants. Apply it to companies under 300. If it's fair, it's fair. But, ultimately, that's not really what this is about. And I think it's clear. But leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about it. Please like and share. I think this is really interesting law that's changing, and there's a lot to it. I'll see you on the next one, on the next video. Bye, guys.